welcome to another edition of the Corner Booth Podcast here from the Stoughton Delicatessen. I'm Aaron Rand, along with Bill Brownstein of the Gazette and Leslie Chesterman and gang. We are today talking about our year-ender, events that happened in the city, the country, the world over the year 2023. So I made a very detailed list which says politics.
Yeah. Right.
Politics.
That's because nothing happened.
That's right.
It was basically...
So I thought we'd start in the political sphere with municipal politics. What was the overriding story of the year for you?
What comes to mind, Aaron, is the fact that somewhere in the midst of all this madness that we've gone through is that Valérie Plante has decided that the Camillian Park roadway will be shut down beginning on the in 2027. Yes.
Yeah.
This despite the fact that not long ago, about 5 years ago, in fact, our commission responsible for making decisions or getting public involved in deciding what they want, they decided that it's not a good idea to do this. They passed the recommendations on to Madame Plante, who said, yes, I'll go for this and we won't do anything. Then suddenly in September, out of the blue, she says, we're doing this, and it's going to cost $91 million. People were up in arms, and for very good reason. I mean, this cuts off the city from all sorts of people. There are a zillion reasons. In terms of greenhouse gas emissions, not going to help because traffic will build up everywhere.
So Camellia Oud,
yes.
Number one. What else?
The other thing that really stood to mind for me, I did a story about this, I was following it, is way back when, talking about the lack of consultation, was the city all of a sudden raised the price on parking meters without telling anybody, saying that they were consulting, and nobody knew about this, not even city people.
And that was after they lied about it the first time when the signs went up too early.
And the signs
right?
went up and everything else up to 11 o'clock, which is like downtown is struggling enough that they don't need parking restrictions to go into effect until like 11 o'clock at night. So, and the fact that they didn't consult, they said they were going to, I think that was a major blow.
Okay.
I think we're also seeing there's some things that are, just to be fair, I was thrilled to see the opening finally of Pine Avenue. I mean, I took
it's
a
open?
left.
For
it's
now.
Open. Oh. It's open. You know, and also the Rev. I mean, there are a lot of things that are finally we're seeing that are coming to life. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of these projects finished, and I think it was something about turning down Pine Avenue that I felt that there was hope.
So Pine Avenue opens. Of course, the Old Bridge is still going to be closed every other weekend.
That's right.
For me, one of the big stories, and we actually had Dominic Olivier here, was the OCPM,
right?
The Public Consultation Office, which, of course, you alluded to in the Camellia Oud decision.
Right.
Biggest public consultation in the history of the city.
12,000
And the city
people.
said, thank you, but no thank you. We'll do what we want. And then we find out about the scandal inside the organization. Someone sent me a great text saying, you know what, they should rename the organization. Just take out the C from OCPM and call it OPM, Other People's Money, because that's what they have been spending. Yeah. And the kicker to this story, forget Dominic Olivier, forget Isabelle Beaulieu, who was fired by the city for this. This week, we found out the guy heading the OCPM, who approved everyone's expenses, approved his own expenses.
And 3 credit cards?
Three credit cards, yeah. One before he started, just to be sure he was ready. One when he got the job, and one that had been floating around. And I'm guessing he'll be the next head to roll. But again, this is a huge embarrassment for the city, for the mayor, who have now, I guess, frozen funding for the OCPM. I thought that was a giant story this year.
They won't be able to get the next best TV set. It's going to be very tough.
It's going to be tough for them. All right, so that's municipal. Provincial, I'll just say for me, provincially, I think the story, at least it's turning into it this year, is the Teflon finally beginning to wear off François Legault.
Oh, very
up until now, poll after poll, great news, great numbers, then all of a sudden, they lose that by-election in Jean Talon. For whatever reason, did he panic? Is this why it's all happening? But every poll number since then has seen him slide, and I'm sure now in the midst of the teacher strikes that are going on, the healthcare situation, those numbers will go even further down.
And don't forget how it affected college tuition rates for whatever reason. He was trying to get back on track by being more nationalistic than the PQ, which was rising in the polls, by saying too much English being spoken on the streets by the...
And the fact that a minister, actually said that out loud when they announced this.
Yes.
And Jean-François Robert, that's one of the reasons. There's too much English being heard on the streets of downtown Montreal.
And as Graham Carr pointed out yesterday, 900 students from out of province at Concordia. You really think that's going to be the difference? Yeah.
But the government also has failed on so many fronts. Like, it's not just one. Health, the emergency room situation a disaster.
Wait.
Education goes without
Hey,
saying.
but how about the LA Kings?
you know
Spending
what?
how much? What?
7 million.
7 million.
7 million,
Yeah,
yeah.
because that's important.
Right.
Because they're never going to get a franchise, I don't think, in Quebec City anyway. The NHL is not about to do it, but sure, bring them in. But the best is the $1 billion $1 billion that it's going to cost to fix the Big O roof.
Well, Bill, now wait a sec. Let's not exaggerate. It could only be 700 or 800 million.
But it's Quebec.
So there is that.
Yeah, but what about the troisième lien? Also, has been flip-flopping constantly for this government, and will that lose them votes in the regions, which is their base?
Which it did already in Jean-Talon. We're assuming that's why this happened, right? An area where this would have been affecting them. I will point out, by the way, one thing. As far as Eric Girard and the hockey is considered, it's wonderful in this province that the minister, he's our finance minister, came out only a couple of days ago to say, by the way, this is our second consecutive quarter of negative growth economically. So we're technically,
We're in a
recession,
Yeah.
but we are ready to invest $7 to $10 million to bring a hockey team here for a week without providing any kind of detail, none, as to what economic spin-off there might be from this.
Right, and where did the money really go?
That consultation process.
So I'm thinking that's not going to happen.
No.
So, all right, that's provincial. Federal. I saw the other day that I guess it was the Canadian Press had named Pierre Poilievre Newsmaker of the Year. What's the significance of that? How much of an impact did he
he
have?
took off his glasses, and it's apparently made him lovable or something. I really don't get that, but I mean, he's leading in the polls as we speak. I find it highly strange that he's as popular as he is. But I think the reason why we never see any federal help from in Quebec with regard to language issues, with regard to college hikes, tuition hikes, and everything else, is because they don't want to get in the way of like liberal stronghold that's here, and they're strangely silent on all fronts. They never come to.
But does he have a chance to carry Quebec?
Yes, his wife speaks French.
His wife speaks French.
Yeah, and that's
you see,
much
and
appreciated.
there's the
that's why
decision maker right
they're
there.
all
Okay.
very
much
quiet
appreciated.
about like just saying anything to aggravate Mr. Legault, and we don't get very much help here.
Yeah, but isn't Poilievre's popularity due a lot to Trudeau fatigue? I mean, you know, the NDP's done some great things this year too, but aren't we just always looking for the next person? Aren't we just waiting for the next election?
Bring back the
Isn't-
Rhinoceros Party.
Well,
You know, you have to wonder. That's a good point. And I wonder
Yeah.
if that fatigue is set in, or if it's reaction to a rash of decisions that people didn't like or don't understand. And the fact that the government, because of the pandemic, they were sending checks out to everybody. It's a story this week. Would they fire 125 people
Yeah.
who work for CRA?
Even more,
Who
I
were
think.
giving
Yeah.
money out that should not have gone out during the pandemic. So it's a maybe a combination of bad decisions made. But look, every time, you know, Pierre Poilievre was on a roll. And now the last couple of polls have showed some of that success is kind of, you know, coming down a little bit. Is Justin Trudeau going to run again in 2025, or
says
do you
he
think
will.
he's had enough?
You know who we really miss is Mark Garneau. Internationally, I mean, he was a presence. He's smart as a whip. I mean, Melanie Joly as his replacement, I don't think a lot of people think that's that brilliant. Nonetheless, he was an international kind of guy, statesman and all the rest. In terms of some of these allegations, like with India and, you know, their involvement in murders here, in one murder here or an assassination, with regard to the relations with China and everything else. It's just that we don't have that kind of presence on the international stage anymore. I mean, Brian Mulroney alluded to it. I mean, we're like the, you know, we're not at the big boys' table anymore. We're in the little boys' table.
but I think the bigger problem is if we have to look forward, we can look back at the Mulroneys and the Mark Garneaus, but the big problem with the Liberal Party is nobody's coming up with the next leader yet. And so this is,
Mark
you know,
Carney, maybe,
so Trudeau's going to be there as long as, you know, it's not going to be Christopher Freeland. It's going to, who knows? But
Is it
it's-
going to be Christopher Freeland? Could it be Christopher Freeland?
that is
no, they're
very
actually
much
saying
up
now
for
it's
debate.
maybe Mark Carney more so, is what I've heard. But what do we know?
Who knows?
And who knows?
I mean, trying to figure out who might be the next leader is one thing, but the question I'm asking is, do you think Justin Trudeau is done? Do you think he'll run? Do you think he's had enough? I mean, he's been there now for, 8 years?
He could always leave and come back. I don't know. There are other people
Only
who
his
did
dad
that.
can
Yeah.
get away with that. Yeah, I don't think he gets away with that. I think he's pretty much done here.
He could leave and come back when he's in his 60s. You know,
Yeah.
he's still young.
It's true.
Could still
What,
be
he's
the
only
youngest
like-
candidate.
And still
yeah,
be the
okay.
youngest.
Yeah.
I will, by the way, we got done with Provincial. I will say Provincial, you brought up an interesting point just now. Beyond Francois Legault and beyond the CAQ now losing some of their sheen in the polls, you have a rudderless liberal
Right,
provincial
right.
party, and
Yeah,
people
very
are
good
looking
point.
at this going,
Right.
how is it that nobody wants
And
to
it-
lead this party?
And at this time, when we're looking for an alternative, I mean, Marwa Risky, I mean, she would have been phenomenal, but she's
Doesn't want to
waiting.
do it.
Not
Not
yet. She's going to have a child. But the fact of the matter, this is the time to jump in there. There's a huge opening. There's a need. We are rudderless.
And isn't it interesting the perception is, and we talked about this with Mara Risky when we had her here, the perception from the public is, I'm looking at a provincial party that has no leader, that doesn't seem to really, care very much
yeah.
about what's going on.
Yeah.
And the party says, no, this is not the time. We're going to wait not a year, but a year and a
Yeah.
half
2025.
before the next election.
Obviously,
finally
they're waiting
calls
for
them.
her to come, but the point is now. It's a crisis. There are people looking for an alternative, and there is none. You talk about it on the federal scene, the same thing here.
Right, or even on the American scene, maybe so many people want to vote for Trump because they don't like Biden. We're always looking for the alternative, and
Yeah,
when
we
there's
don't
not
like-
one there, you stick with the status quo.
I also forgot the one, I'm not sure how we managed not to bring this up during the municipal part of the political discussion. No one said bike paths. How is that possible?
well-
How did we overlook that?
Well, you guys are anti-bike paths, but
No,
I'm pro-bike
no,
paths.
no, I'm not anti-bike. Bill, are you anti-bike
Bill is
path?
anti-bike path.
Are you anti-bike path?
Put it this way, not at the expense of the greater population. There are certain areas, fine, but like they go into NDG, into areas where residents don't have room to park. You're living in a city, as you have pointed out, where there are more cars than people. And the fact of the matter is that you have to make some concessions there.
Don't we?
And,
Bike path pro person?
I'm not going to be
Look-
getting back on my bike anytime soon, but I appreciate the people who do, and I do
Okay.
understand that there is way too much traffic
you can
in the
park
city.
where you live on the street.
Right.
You can do stuff. There are people like around Grand, Terrebonne, areas like
Oh,
that.
wait a sec. To your point just now, if we acknowledge that there's more traffic than ever before, more cars, shouldn't we, to Bill's point, be looking at solutions to deal with the cars that are there now? They're not going to disappear anytime
No, but public
soon.
transport. So it's not just about bikes, too. Public transport is very important in our city, and there are not enough people taking the bus or the REV or the train or whatever. This is going to be very important in the future.
But is that because they don't want to, or because the system is not good enough that they can afford to say, I'm going to leave my car at home because I know if I take public transit, I'll still get there in reasonable time?
Well,
that's not the answer for them.
But somebody like Plante was elected in the first place because she wanted to bring in the pink line and she wanted to do a lot more. It turns out it's so incredibly
Right.
expensive that we're not going to be doing all of these things. But the idea for the future is essential because we can't get around this. We can't keep putting aside the problem of traffic and too many cars in our city.
Yes, but by the,
The
same
plateau
token,
is overwhelmed by this.
Okay, we're not going to come up with a resolution.
brings
to
us
this.
back
I agree with
to
you.
Camellia and
No,
Hood
but
again.
you're right.
91 million spent to make it. Who's that going to benefit? Bikers
The guys who race up and down.
who go faster
Mount
than
Royal.
any car.
I may not take my bike, but I really should be taking the metro more often. And recently, I told the story that I was going to the Palais du Congrès. It took half the time that it took in my car. I mean, you can all spend your time in your car, and yes, it's cozy and everything. And now with electric cars, it's a lot cheaper if you have an electric car. The reality is that we are, as a modern city, we have to get rid of cars. In Europe, they're doing that. Paris, I was in Paris this year.
Yes.
The Parisians are going bonkers because they're putting in all of these bike lanes. And then actually in Paris, you can bike
Hey.
12 months of the year.
I'm in agreement. Look, I rarely use a car these days. I walk. I live close to downtown. It's much easier, right next to public transportation. It's fine. But I'm just saying, for the people who live where you live in town,
Right.
in Mount Royal, and parts of NDG, and all sorts.
Right.
They can't even park on their street.
Okay, so where's the solution here? You're describing Paris as a potential
modern city.
modern
Vienna,
city.
Paris,
Okay.
Copenhagen.
So is the solution here, where public transit is not yet good enough or efficient enough, that people can simply say, okay, I can leave my car at home and get where I have to go? Do we make it more expensive for people, like in London, where you
Yes.
pay to go? Is that the
Yes.
solution?
Well, that can be a solution. It's a little radical for our city because we don't have the problems that London has. But the solution is the next generation. Because I'll tell you guys, my two kids, neither of them use a car or even want their license.
Because you won't let them drive.
No, Bill, let's be fair here. I want them to drive. I said, go get a loaf of bread. They'll say, I'll walk there, Mom. I don't have to take the car. I said, but you see, the thing is that the next generation, I really think that they do understand the importance of biking or of taking public transport. Yes, they still throw plastic in the garbage, but the next generation
I
still,
agree.
there's something to be said for their love of public transportation.
We went electric with the car and all the rest. It's just,
That's an interesting take. I think you're right. I think this idea where this next generation, where we used to, when we turned 16,
we wanted
my
a
God,
car.
I can't wait to get into that car.
Absolutely.
You're not seeing that now, are you?
Not only my kids, with other
Yeah.
people are telling me that my only friend whose kids really drive. She lives in LA, where you really do have to drive if you want to get anywhere.
Hey, for me, it's a pain in the butt driving downtown anyway, doing anything, parking. I much prefer that.
Don't mention parking in downtown at the same
Oh, no,
time,
downtown.
because they don't exist.
Yeah, no.
The Corner Booth podcast is brought to you in part by the Snowden Delicatessen, where we are. 75 years in business, the home of Montreal's greatest smoked meat, plus carnotzel, potato latkes, and the famous Snowden Deli party sandwiches. That's the Snowden Delicatessen. I have a heading called Culture.
Culture?
Culture. The only
Yes.
thing on my list, though, is Taylor Swift.
Right, Taylor Swift.
Is there anything else culturally
it?
beyond
Who
Taylor
could
Swift?
avoid Taylor Swift? Back to politics. Taylor Swift now is going to
She
be
could
a
run for
dangerous.
president.
Well,
Yeah,
no, but she's
she's
telling
right.
people to vote for Biden, and she has such a huge following that this can make a difference.
Probably
and
right,
have something
yeah.
like
So she'll
get the
decide
young
the
vote
election.
out.
They
And the
thought
young-
they thought Oprah could get elected, but Travis Kelce's the vice president. I'm not so sure.
Right. Well, no, but if Taylor says get out there and vote to her fans, that could make a huge
No,
difference.
you're right.
Especially from where she's from.
So if we move beyond Taylor
Well,
Swift culturally,
Celine, I feel your heart breaks
Celine,
for
oh my
Celine
God.
Dion.
Yeah.
Can't hasn't performed.
stiff
and
person syndrome still an issue,
very,
getting
very-
worse.
Yeah. Well, according to her sister, there's nothing on the horizon, and
Right.
it is getting worse. Your heart has to break for her on that front.
Right.
Really
it's
does.
terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible situation.
Can we somehow incorporate the restaurant scene in the city into culture? So
How can we get this in
open,
the- yes.
closed, coming, going?
Yes, well, when we discussed this at first, Bill said, there are all these restaurants that were on the best list. So Montreal really doing well.
We had like,
we're on the best
20,
list.
the
Vemo
number
Lapin,
one, yeah.
winning everything. But on the other hand, when you looked at Air Canada's en route best new restaurants in Canada, I think the best we did was number 8. So we're not the kind of
But-
hot scene.
Well, okay, sorry, Leslie, but on the 100 best list and put together by a Torontonian,
Yes,
I might add,
true.
we were way better than Toronto. We had like close to 20 on there, like
Right.
number one, and on the Maclean's list,
Yes.
Mont Lapin was number one as well.
But I do worry about the next round, the next generation. Again, the new restaurants, the ones that did well were already there for a long time. And also in 2024, I believe we're going into now, 2024, I've been told, the government is calling in a lot of pandemic loans.
Yes.
And a lot of restaurants are very worried about this because either
You're
they
right.
didn't put money aside to pay them back. A lot of restaurants that are full are still telling me, and they're expensive. That's another thing. When's the last time you went out to eat?
Yeah.
It costs a fortune. So people are going out to eat less, although every time I go to restaurants, they're full. But there a lot of people who own restaurants are telling me that even if they're full and prices are high, they're still not doing well.
And they can't get labor, and they have to pay.
No, that's gotten better. The labor has gotten better in restaurants because I think a lot of people have decided they do have to go back
So
and work.
are you going to see restaurants? I'm assuming the
I think we're
high-end
gonna see-
restaurants are going to manage to get through this. The ones lower down, less expensive, the ones who have to pay those loans back, are
The
they ones
ones
in
who
trouble?
have a good accountant working for them, and the ones who have figured out how to make food cost work for them, and the ones who didn't get stuck paying. There's a thing that happens in restaurants is sometimes you have low-level employees who've been working there for a very long time, who are making very high salaries because they've been there for so many years. But that can be a problem, you know. So I actually knew somebody who kind of closed the business because he had too many people at the low level of the kitchen making a lot of money. Anyway, but every year we say this. Every year we say, look out, all these restaurants are going to close. And then we actually don't see that many restaurants
Right.
closing. So
Have you seen any? I mean, you covered the scene for a long time. Any surprises in terms of who's closing, or
Well,
in terms of what's coming, perhaps that you know of?
there was an interesting. I thought the story of Maison Publique closing
Maison
was
Publique.
very interesting because apparently Derek Damon wanted to slow down and wanted to take a little bit of a break and not have so much to do and not to do. I'm not saying, but I think that is going to be. That's been something that happened since the pandemic. Is that people don't necessarily want to live that kind of crazy lifestyle
Right.
anymore, and I don't blame them at all.
Chez Sophie, another example.
Chez Sophie, another
Terrific
example.
women.
Walking away,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, their husband and wife with a child, like it wasn't worth it.
Yeah, and the Maine, that's another interesting
Yes.
closing because it was so important to Montrealers. Huge reaction. Always played second fiddle, of course, to Schwartz across the street, but also maybe some of these old school restaurants that a lot of people were nostalgic about. Again, the next generation, are they really interested in
Lester's
going
got sold.
to an old restaurant?
I wonder if we've somehow managed to omit. Now, I could be wrong. I know they're coming to Canada. I think they're coming to Toronto. I'm not sure if they're coming to Montreal. Shake Shack is on the way.
Shake Shack?
Are you familiar with Shake
I
Shack?
did, yeah, of course, yes. I didn't know they're coming.
Yeah,
to
they're coming.
Montreal.
I know they're coming to Toronto. I imagine at some point they may come to Montreal. I thought that was a big hamburger
Well,
story.
but foreign restaurants that come to Montreal with concepts don't usually do well here,
Oh.
so it'll be interesting to see if it works.
Then again, you consider how many local restaurants hamburgers spawn in this city, right?
Right, a lot of hamburgers.
NDG, what is it? Boeuf de
Notre Boeuf de Grasse.
Boeuf de Grasse,
Yeah.
Five Guys.
Yeah. Five Guys, foreign chain.
And Mr. Steer, hello.
Yeah.
Still around, huh?
Still
Yes,
around.
and still very good.
And
What we
still
need is
excellent.
In and Out. That would be the one.
In-N-Out.
That's the one to beat. But Shake Shack is delicious
Okay.
with the crinkle fries and the milkshake.
Okay, so there you go. I also, at some point, figured we should talk about movies. I know you get a chance to watch some TV, some movies. Favorite movie of the year so far?
I think
Oh,
Oppenheimer.
wait, and you can't say Barbie or Oppenheimer.
No.
I liked Oppenheimer.
Barbieheimer?
You know what else I liked? Holdovers, just playing.
Oh, I've heard that's
Paul
great.
Giamatti.
With Paul Giamatti, terrific.
great.
Right.
The same guy. Remember that fabulous wine movie way back when?
Right.
Sideways?
Sideways, yeah.
Yeah, the
Paul
same
Giamatti.
director. Yeah, Paul Giamatti, same director. I mean, this guy
Okay.
goes to like the curmudgeonly guy has to stay at this private school over the holidays, and one of the kids, his parents don't
Has
really want,
issues.
has issues, so they learn to get
Okay.
along against them. But a terrific performance.
What
Right.
about you? What have you seen that
I
you
just
like?
saw Maestro the other day in the
Saw
theater.
Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
Bradley Cooper.
Okay.
It's a magnificent, beautiful movie, and the great person is Carey Mulligan in that.
Carrie
She's
Mulligan
beautiful.
is a star, but I saw it as well. It's available now also on
yes,
Netflix.
yes.
But for whatever reason, I thought it had way more to do with his lifestyle than
Yes.
his music.
Yes,
and I was
yes.
hoping to
the
get
music
more.
was played down. I agree.
Yes,
Yannick Nézet-Séguin, by the way, was the consultant.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, right.
But nonetheless, I felt Carrie
Mulligan.
Mulligan was phenomenal as his long-suffering wife.
I have a question because I can't remember the actual name of the movie. It's on Netflix. They spent a lot of money promoting this thing. Julia Roberts, Ethan Hawke.
Oh, yeah.
And
Right.
Barack Obama was a consultant on the film. It's near the end of the world. Have
Yeah,
you seen
it's at
it?
the end of the. Yes, I have seen it. It's
I'm
okay.
sorry. I thought it was
Fair.
not very good.
Meh?
Very fair.
Have you seen it?
I have not. I don't want to see
okay.
the
You would
pressing
say
movies.
meh.
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 Yeah. Julie
Okay.
Roberts, yeah.
Yeah.
Who's terrific, but yeah.
Meh.
I don't.
It was a very weird
Yeah,
conspirity-based
didn't get it.
film that
Okay.
we could do.
I'm not ready for the end
Then
of
I
the
thought
world.
we would wrap up by simply, and I kind of let
we
you
were
guys
going to
both
talk
know.
TV.
Oh, of course, TV.
Yeah, TV.
Okay,
Oh,
TV.
Right. Well,
Do you watch TV? 'Cause
I do watch
apparently
TV.
Not many people do.
Well,
anymore.
yeah. No. Well, all these series that have been on. The one that I was talking about was the one with Pedro Pascal, and I just have a blank now. The
The end of the world.
the-
No, time.
Come on, what's going on? This is
That's how this works.
yeah, but okay. I've got to say another thing. Now I will be slammed for this guilty pleasure show, and it's not Emily in Paris. Don't ask me why I know about Emily in Paris because I don't watch it. I've of course watched the whole thing. The Gilded Age. Now,
Oh
this
yeah,
is Gilded
I
Age was
totally
inter-
agree. Totally
It was
agree.
total
Set,
crap
costume,
the first season.
Who cares about the plot?
Right.
Gorgeous
total
to look
crap.
at.
Second season, very good.
Incredulous as it may be,
Very
but
good.
gorgeous to look at. I
yeah,
agree.
Yeah.
I have to go along with something called Slow Horses.
I've heard about that. Yes, I've started
with
that.
Gary Oldman, sensational, about a
Kristen
bunch
Scott
of
Thomas.
dysfunctional MI5 people work at a place called Slow House
Yeah.
because they just can't fit in. And Gary Oldman is terrific. I mean, he's a sloth. He smokes. He drinks. He
Yeah.
doesn't shower.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and yet like he's
smells.
brilliant. Smells.
Smells,
But like
yes.
if we had smell-o-vision,
Yes,
it
yes,
would
yes,
come
yes.
across brilliant. And this is now in its third season on Apple. Really, really good.
The season. Sorry, it was The Last of Us. That's
The Last of Us.
Just
yes,
to say that I
yes.
remember.
And then I watched The Night Agent, which turned out to be the most watched show on Netflix in 2023. And you kind of watch it thinking, it's not bad. and then you watch another episode, you say, it's not bad, and the whole thing is just, it's not bad, but it wasn't amazing, but you kind of end up watching the whole thing, and then you find out that everybody else, the whole world was watching the show, so they must have thought it was great. Although I did miss this year, did we miss this on TV?
What's that?
The Squid Game, the reality?
I did not watch
I
Squid
didn't
Game.
I watched
I'm
the
too
first
old.
season, yeah.
Yes, I'm too
Too
old.
old?
I'm too old. I'm too old.
Okay.
My kids watched it, and they went meh.
But
Everybody else, they went
not
meh.
the original Squid Game, the reality show that became the follow-up to Squid Game.
Oh my God! I
See?
don't know about this.
Missed that
What
too.
is this?
All right.
I missed it. But I did want to mention one thing, Aaron.
Yes.
Is that about social media, which is very important because, of course, it's
Good
such
point.
a huge topic all
Yes,
the time.
I know where you're
Social
going.
media, Elon Musk, blah blah blah. For me, was the death of Twitter, which is now X, right? But everybody's still calling it Twitter. And the reason I'm saying that is because I actually would, converse with you guys a lot on Twitter, and a lot of that's where you would
I
go
stopped doing it.
just to see what was happening in the world.
Yeah.
And especially anybody who was a journalist was on there with bells on. And, that's kind of where I learned that Michael
Letting
Jackson
Alex Jones
died.
back, letting Trump back. It's so toxic.
It's
like a
it becomes so
cesspool.
toxic.
So you
and
said it's
just-
dead, and I'm saying it may be dying. I'm still on Twitter.
I'm
for just
still
that
on
reason,
there.
though, just
Bill's
to sort
not
of know
on
what's
there.
going on.
A lot of people are going off there, especially since Alex Jones was let
Yeah,
back
yeah.
on the anniversary of Sandy Hook by Elon Musk, which is disgusting. There are a lot of reasons not to be on there, but it's something that a lot of us were in there for years.
I
Do you think
agree.
it, do you think it blows
everything.
up? Is it done?
It can
Does
be
it-
done, but everybody's
advertising-wise,
going on
it's
to
getting
Threads
nailed.
and to
People
other
can.
places, but
Yeah.
we have too
Okay.
much choice now. There's
Yeah.
so
All
much
right.
going on.
We're going to wrap it up. I've asked you both, as we look back on the year, to come up with one word, just one word, to describe the year. So, Bill, I'll start with you.
Chaos
Okay?
everywhere.
Do you want to elaborate?
Well, we got war in the Middle East. You got Israel, Hamas. You got chaos in the States. You got Donald
War in Ukraine.
Trump. War in Ukraine. You've got chaos here on every front imaginable. It's a chaotic. There is very little to look on and say, "Wow, it's very heartening. Good things are happening. A child was
Okay.
born in a manger somewhere." Like,
Right,
All
right,
right.
right.
Leslie, one word.
Well, I would say for me it's sadness, and because on these year-end podcasts we talk about everything that happened in the world, but very close to home, I lost my mother. I know Aaron also lost his mother, and so we talk a lot about what's going on, but actually what's going on in our homes is what matters the most and what affects us the most, and we get distracted by a million things going on, but really losing a parent, or for anybody out there who's lost anybody, these are the things that really matter the most in life. And for me, that would be the word. And hopefully in 2024, it will be happiness. But, we all have to mourn these hard times when bad things happen in our families, or we lose people, or sickness. I spent a lot of time in the hospital this year. I saw a lot of people suffering. And, we forget how lucky we are when things are going well.
good point.
Fair enough. I will say, in a general sense for me, the word is anger.
Ooh.
I don't remember a time when people were as angry on a regular basis about anything and everything as now. So I'm speaking from the radio show, for example. You take phone calls, I never have seen this level of anger, whether it's at a government, at something happening either in municipally, in the world, as I have now, and that's really, really disconcerting.
Right.
You kind of wonder, when does that pendulum start to shift the other way? When do we get over this? When do we get back to sort of, being at least happy? Because as I said, I've never seen this much anger ever
Are you
from people.
hopeful that it will get better next year?
I am. I just don't know what that catalyst is going to be.
Right.
And we have elections coming up municipally, provincially, in the U.S., of course, in a year. I'm afraid it's not even plateaued yet.
No, right.
So that's what my word is for this year.
So what does Aaron
Never
do?
seen it.
He gets married.
Yeah.
That's true. That's
Just to
happiness.
shift the
Yeah,
focus.
exactly.
There you go. All right. That's it. Bill, thank you.
Thank
Leslie,
you.
thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year, guys.
Happy New
And
Year.
thank you so much for joining us here on the Corner Booth. We'll be back in the new year. Have a great new year. Have a great, happy holiday.
Take care.